Welcome to Off the Roster, brought to you by our founding partner, Proline. Betting on Proline is now easier than ever with their new app. Download it today and make things interesting. I'm Lindsay Dunn, that's Dan Riccio, and that is our buddy Cabbie wearing my favorite mustard shirt. What is happening on this Tuesday, my friends? It's Tuesday.
It is Tuesday.
I just realized it was Tuesday while I said it.
It's 3 days away from opening day for the Blue Jays.
Oh, I'm so excited.
Yes, it's going to be a raucous crowd at Rogers Center for sure.
Yeah, they announced that they will be, I think we all knew this, but unveiling the AL championship banner. They're going to be giving out little pennants. There's just so much celebration they're going to have, and they're suggesting for anyone who is going to the game, get in your seats early. Yeah, I'm excited. We're going to have Max Scherzer on the show in a couple of minutes. We're going to talk to Bobby Marks about Raptors and NBA news and a fun storyline that continues to live on with the Leafs. But Cabbie, did you hear about the story of the 7 dogs who were kidnapped by their owners?
Yeah.
And then I just
they were kidnapped and from their owners, and then they what did they travel 17 kilometers back to their home or to their farm or whatever, somewhere in China. Yeah, and I saw
it's like real life Homeward Bound.
Yeah, this is amazing. Yeah. I got like misty-eyed looking at the footage online, and of all dog breeds, to lead them safely back to home, it was a corgi. I can't even get my dog to sit when I give her a treat. I need to meet this dog and get it to. What a happy story.
I did not have the corgi as the leader of the pack. I'm not going to lie to you, but
did not.
Didn't know the corgi has that kind of an aura, but
yeah, seriously, didn't know that was in the genetics of that leadership trait. It is present in the corgis, or that specific corgi. It's like
that's why
I know the road home.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
the road home.
Wait, don't you have one,
corgi?
or is it?
I do have a
Nick?
corgi.
Oh, okay.
I do. Sophia, Michael Jordan, Keith Richards, Dunn Peterson is a corgi. She's very stubborn, and that breed is known for herding. So my dog actually herds me, and she'll like nip at my ankles and stuff. I absolutely am the
dog herds you. It's a shepherd.
Yeah.
It's a shepherd for humans.
Yeah, she absolutely herds me at the dog park in our house, and she keeps me in check. I'm known as the little dog in our dog pack at our house. You're welcome for way too much information. Let's talk about the Blue Jays when we talk about that pack. There's still a roster spot, some decisions that need to be made. Atkins said that, they're going to wait till Wednesday. And the big other storyline is Davis Schneider or Leo Jimenez. Who will get one of those final spots? Dan, who do you think or who do you want to get that?
I mean, in my heart of hearts, I would say that it should be Davis Schneider. He's been around for a couple of years. We know how he broke into the league and how fun that was. Maybe it hasn't gone as well lately for Davis Schneider, but I still think he's a guy that you can put into a spot against lefties for certain matchups. He's definitely useful. Whereas with Leo Jimenez, it's mostly like this guy is backup for the other infielders in case we need it. I think if, when you think about this decision, Davis Schneider has a bigger, he's got a bigger following in the fan base, I guess you could say, but he's going to have to be able to, or John Schneider's going to have to be able to trust him at second base and in different spots if Davis Schneider's going to win this roster spot.
It's a coin flip for me. No real lean either way. I take a backup infielder just in case, just because you never know. 162 games, but a coin flip for me.
Mel in the chat saying her heart says Davis for a multitude of reasons, but also because he's more versatile. But her head says Leo since he's out of options and Davis still has 2. Mm-hmm. So that is one of those storylines.
But they also need the mustache crew to continue, right? So
they got enough mustaches, don't they? Dylan and Kevin.
they got a pretty good stash crew, but it could be a full-on faction if they keep Davis Schneider around.
Man, this one, it's a tough one for the personal reasons. If you follow this team and you've been around them, Davis is such a lovely human being, as is Leo. I've had the chance to interview him and speak to him a bunch of times, but Davis is like always smiling. He's putting in the effort. He doesn't, get too high or get too low that you just can't help but root for him. And that is not a reason to want somebody to have that final spot. But I do think it should go to him when we do look at a bit of his stats. I know last year he spent some time with the Buffalo Bisons, and both of them, as Cabbie says, it could be a coin flip if you do look at their stats. We'll see what happens there. But if you were the other Schneider on this team, that being manager John Schneider, who just signed a 2-year extension, what do you think is keeping him up at night as he maps out this season in his head?
So what's got him having a bit of insomnia right now? Well, it might be rising oil prices, but probably more specifically to John Schneider, it's the biggest question mark with this team, Bo Bichette.
Oh,
I know he's not around anymore, but they didn't land Bo Bichette. They didn't get Kyle Tucker. They are depending a lot on Kazuma Okamoto to be that middle of the order bat that's going to fill a lot of what Bo Bichette did. And, that's probably what keeps me up at night about the Blue Jays getting back to being AL East champs or back to the postseason is that layer of offense going to still be there, or how are they going to replace it with Bo Bichette now being a New York Met?
Well, outside of Vladimir Guerrero Jr., Blue Jays fans in the front office are optimistic that Toronto can maintain a consistent run production. Now, regression is likely part of that equation. 5% less, 10% less, in key categories, we're not really sure. But there are two players that I'm looking at that could potentially regress. In 2025, we were talking on the show, and everybody knows, George Springer had one of the greatest seasons of his career at 35 years old. Career high in average, 309. Career high in on base around 400. Career high in OPS plus, which is 161. If you're an average hitter in the NBA, in MLB, it's about 100. Aaron Judge is the top of that. He was 215 in 2025. So George Springer 161. 2024 was a dreadful year for Springer, where his batting average was 90 points lower than it was in 25. He scored 30 fewer runs than he did in 24 than he did in 25. He is Dalton Varsho's best friend on the team. He's the leadoff hitter. He's very much the engine, or the straw that's is he the straw that's he's the steering wheel of the engine for the Toronto Blue Jays offense. But he's 35. But he's 36 now. So is it reasonable to assume that his production will regress at least a little bit? I think so. Additionally, I was listening to in a preseason game, the Dodgers posted the last time you'll hear the horns in the preseason or something like that, and that's the music for Edwin Diaz, the closer that they acquired from the New York Mets. We don't have, or Toronto doesn't have, one of those lights out closers. Jeff Hoffman, pretty good. But 2025 was not a great season for Jeff Hoffman. 23 and 24 were elite when he was in Philadelphia. Last year in Toronto, ERA over 4, WHIP was over. Giving up 15 home runs. In 23 and 24, he had a WHIP under 1. He had an ERA just around 2. So those were great years for Hoffman. First year in Toronto, not so great. So what will we see, or what will Toronto get from Jeff Hoffman, who is the closer? So Springer's production and trusting Jeff Hoffman in high leverage situations in the regular season, I think might cause John Schneider to have a little bit of insomnia in the 2026 season.
One storyline surrounding Game 7, sorry to bring us all back there, is Jeff Hoffman. I'm surprised that's not brought up enough, how the home run was hit off of him in the 9th. And you bring up, IKF, which I know, Dan, you just love talking about. Or even, I think, Shane Bieber in that game.
Shane Bieber gave up the Will Smith home run, yeah.
it's just
But
kind
you're
of
talking
all
about the
put on-
Miguel Rojas home
But
run.
it's all just brought in.
The
that
only home run
IKF.
he hit from that side of the plate all season long, right?
And that's a storyline I've never understood. And I don't want to just put this on Hoffman because lovely guy, but I know for a lot of the season last year, a storyline surrounding fans, and they would bring it up often on the other show, 6 Inning Stretch, when they'd write in their fan cues for Witt was what's going on with Hoffman, like how they don't trust him. And that's a storyline I don't want to start, but I've never understood why there wasn't more traction surrounding that storyline. So I do understand why Schneider would be losing some sleep on that.
It's maybe one of the priorities of the offseason that they didn't necessarily get done. Now, they got Tyler Rogers, right? So they got a big part of the bullpen figured out, the submariner. And we saw him in the WBC. The guy can get a lot of ground ball outs, and he should be a big part of the Blue Jays' success. But it's probably an ongoing process to add another high leverage arm at some point over the course of the season. Yimi Garcia is going to come back, but you don't really know what he's going to look like through all the injuries he's had over the last couple of years. Jeff Hoffman needs to be better, and I think they've got to be better. John Schneider has to be better about how they use Jeff Hoffman. Felt like they used him a ton early last season, and when he was used a lot, you would see his velo come down, and if he had regular rest, that velo would be up, and he needs to sit around 95 in order to have success. So with a deeper bullpen, can the Blue Jays manage Jeff Hoffman's innings better than they did a year ago? That'll probably be a part of the early season conversation for the Jays.
My thing that I think might be keeping Schneider up just for a little bit is a starting rotation. When we talk about that a little bit, because
Hey, I thought I was the only one on the worryometer.
I'm
for
not
this.
on the worryometer because I'm not John Schneider. I'm as if I was John Schneider. Lindsay is not worried about this, but Cody Ponce right now, because I believe he is 4th in the rotation. We have yet to see him playing in a Major League Baseball game. We saw him playing spring training. Major League Baseball game in 3 or 4 years, something like that. How will he be able to handle the pressure? How will he fit in the rotation? How will he play not only at the Sky Dome but on the road? Just what is he going to do? What will he bring? What will he deliver? I am not concerned about it. No worryometer here. But if I was John Schneider, I would think about that a little bit. And and Max Scherzer, also a storyline there. Will he continue to pitch like he was in spring training? And
Mad Max was really good in spring. You saw the velo numbers were there. Yes. They stayed up through the start, whereas last year maybe we'd see that velo start to come down the later he got into his outings. And, he was good in the playoffs for the Jays. You can't really deny that, right? He gave them solid minutes, and he also gave John Schneider an earful. Don't take me off the mound, John. So we all remember that moment, but this guy's 41. There's been 20 pitchers in the last that have pitched at age 41 in the major leagues of baseball have been starters. We're talking R.A. Dickey, with many Blue Jays fans will remember. Justin Verlander, who's still out there with Detroit. Him and Scherzer are kind of like the outliers in this conversation. Charlie Morton's
Jamie
still
Moyer
going.
Pitched till he was 50.
Yes.
Yeah, Jamie Moyer
Throwing
forever.
about 85.
The soft tossing lefty of all soft tossing lefties. But he had an ERA over 5 last year. He had trouble putting guys away. He had trouble with the home run ball. For as much as I know Scherzer's walking into the Hall of Fame, and I still have a certain level of confidence that he's going to give you a good floor for the Jays, you have to bring in reality to the conversation. It's probably not going to be smooth sailing if he's pitching for most of the year with the Blue Jays at all times.
It's best to just measure our expectations with Max Scherzer. As you said, Dan, great points. He's 41, ERA over 5, and he's I was out on acquiring or re-signing Max Scherzer. I thought it wasn't a great decision. I will happily. I don't know what I'll eat, but I'll eat my words. Let's say that before I offer anything.
Given the injuries, it's been a necessary signing at this point.
You know what? It had turned out to be necessary for sure, for at least the first month, maybe 6 weeks of the season. But I think as Toronto Blue Jays fans, if we measure our expectations, this guy, as you're right, is going to walk into Cooperstown on a first ballot, but he's not 28 anymore. It's not the Detroit Tigers, Max Scherzer, or even the Washington Nationals, Max Scherzer. So wily vet, and a friend of mine who works for the club told me how important he is in the clubhouse, and I was unaware of this. And he said, like, him and Bassett were like the OG vets that the clubhouse very much respected. So there is some of that. I mean, how will it translate on the field when he's pitching to Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton or Jarren Duran in Boston? I mean, or Gunnar Henderson in Baltimore? Remains to be seen. But measure expectations, and I think that will be one of the keys to happiness or joy. Keep your expectations low, folks.
My expectations are always so high that I get such a lunch bag letdown. I'm like, they're going to the World Series again. This is going to be amazing. Every year I believe they're going to the World Series. So last year I didn't have to eat crow. It was great. But I had the chance to speak to 41-year-old Max Scherzer, who's entering into his 19th season, the future Hall of Famer, about his upcoming season with the Blue Jays. Take a listen. So Max, this obviously isn't your first rodeo when it comes to spring training. So when we're here, we're seeing all the storylines. How is this team any different than they were last year around this time?
You know, there's a kind of a confidence around here that we know we can get it done. Obviously, we showed the world that we can play with the best, and we can even beat the best. You know, we have what it takes to be able to win it all. But every year is different. Every year, anything can happen. You got to unfold it. And, you know, now we got a target on our backs. You know, we're going to have to go. This is going to be a really challenging year for our team to be able to go out there and try to have the same type of successes we did last year. So, you know, yeah, we got good vibes right now, but I completely respect the challenge that we have in front of us.
Talk about good vibes and some challenges. When it comes to Trey Yesavage, we just found out that he's starting the season on the IL. For a young guy like that who had such a breakout season last year, have you had the chance to talk to him about the mental part of this all, or kind of the advice that you would give him?
Yeah, it's not necessarily the mental part. You know, for him, you know, there's kind of two parts of, you know, showing what you got to be able to do here. And you check the biggest box of saying that he can pitch here and he can get guys out. That's the hardest part. He checked that box. We've seen that. The second hardest part is staying healthy and being physical and understanding the durability component to this, because it doesn't matter how good your stuff is. If you can't be out there, that's a problem. But what he's going through is what all kind of young guys go through. Like, you know, even myself, I was in his situation having to pitch all the way through the World Series to try to, you know, you really got to learn yourself, learn all what you have to do in the off season to put yourself to be healthy, be durable. And he's just going through a learning process. It's nothing that he did anything wrong. It's just he's learning his own body. And so, you know, this is just a chance for him to understand what he has to do to get his arm right. You know, my program can't work for him. He's got to figure out his own program. And so he's just in a learning curve, and that's actually good.
What do you remember about the learning curve of your first spring training almost 2 decades ago?
It wasn't so much a first spring training where I had to do a lot of learning. It was kind of the second, third when I was coming back through, and I was really, you know, solidifying myself as a starter. Like, hey, you know, trying to make 30 starts, like, this is a hard thing to do, to really, you know, go out there and throw. You know, the goal is to throw 200 innings. Like, that's a very hard thing to do, is to be durable at this level. And so, you know, I definitely had hiccups on my own. I had to learn how to train and do different things to make sure my arm would stay healthy throughout the whole season. So, I mean, it's hard. It's very hard to be durable, but you really got to be in tune with yourself and learn yourself, because you're going to have 1,000 different opinions. They're not all going to work. You got to be smart enough to recognize which ones work for you.
Well, a big opinion in your household, everyone knows, was your sweet daughter who wrote that letter, which I already know you talked about, how that's a bad negotiation tactic. But what was it like to tell her, hey, we're going back to Toronto?
It was great. You know, really for all the kids, all my kids wanted to come back. And so, you know, they were all excited to be able to come back and see the CN Tower and be back at the stadium and be back with the team. So, you know, they were excited that was going to happen.
How quickly did you reach out, or did Ernie Clement hit you up?
We had been texting throughout the whole off season, so you know, he had some good quips of me. So once I signed, I gave him some good quips back. But we got a great relationship. He's hilarious. He's funny. Love playing with him. So we have a good time.
I asked him about the trip that happened in the off season, where it was mostly pitchers that went, and he was the one position player. Did this, at any point, was there any competitive games that happened between you guys when you were celebrating your wife's birthday on that vacation?
There weren't really necessarily games. I mean, you know, we you know, because it was in early January, you know, because it was all pitchers, we were in our throwing programs. Like here we are on vacation. That like all right, in the mornings, hey, we had to go do our throwing. Like all the pitchers, hey, I got my throwing in every single day, and then some beach football actually, I felt like actually helped my arm. So I've never taken a vacation that late, but doing it with a bunch of pitchers, that was the only way to make it possible.
Beach football, quarterback when you were younger, do you feel that helped you at all when it came to your fantasy football picking and pool?
No, I can't say it helped me in fantasy football, but I can say, being in high school and playing all three sports, I felt like that made me a better athlete. Being a good athlete is a key to being a good pitcher, to be durable. So I actually kind of think it plays more into being a better athlete and a better pitcher by playing multiple sports.
When we talk about your persona of Mad Max, I laugh because right now there's so many people looking at you, and I know you get this everywhere you go. People are excited to see you, but you are a very lovely and approachable, nice person. When did you kind of accept and kind of enjoy the fact that some people, even little, said that he was intimidated to approach you about his game for a moment?
Yeah, I get it. It happens everywhere. That just happens. And that's where, like, once I get in the clubhouse and just interact with the guys, like, look, who I am on the mound, that's not who I am in the clubhouse. Like, in the clubhouse, I'm joking around with everybody, here to have a good time, be one of the dudes, just be like everybody else. Like, I don't, feel like I act any differently. I'm just one of the guys. I just want to be one of the guys. And then, obviously, once I get on the field, like, that's game time. That's a whole different animal. I mean, that's when we're competing to win, and it's kind of dog eat dog out there. So, that takes a whole different mentality. So, for me, that's how I pitch, that's how I play, and that's how I am in the clubhouse.
Well, when we talk about that mentality, I'm just curious, is there anything that still kind of ticks you off when you're at the mound? And maybe we won't show this to anybody else so that they would hear this, but it immediately will set you off.
I don't know. Maybe when the manager tries to take me out too early.
How much did people bring that up to you over the last 5 months, 4 months?
I know. It's all great because I love Schneid's. I love it. And he's not the only one. I've snapped on a lot of different managers, but it's a two-way street. I have a ton of respect for all the managers. I know how hard it is to manage. I'm in the constantly talking to the managers, and I'm walking through scenarios and situations, and as a starting pitcher, I mean, you can kind of be an extension of the manager. You're managing the game. You're managing how you're navigating through the lineups, when to challenge guys, when not to. So you have a very good sense of how the game's unfolding, and for me, I really take pride into knowing how to get through the lineup multiple times through, and so I'll know where I'm at. I know where I'm at in terms of if I'm good to keep going, or if, hey, it's time to take me out of the game. And for every time I say I want to stay in the game, there's 9 other times where I'm telling you to take me out of the ball game because I recognize where I'm at. And so it makes for a good comedy because everybody thinks about the one time when I want the ball, and obviously I have that in me, but there's 9 other times where I'm telling the manager this is a good time to take me out.
Well, we talk about being on the pitch, being on the mound, not being wanting to be in a little bit longer than you'd like to be in. Cody Ponce, everyone is curious how he is going to perform in Major League Baseball. We've seen him, back in MLB. We've seen him during some spring training games. You're the expert. So I'm going to ask you this. What have you seen in him around spring training that you think is going to translate well and help this team?
It's tough because, to me, these results aren't really real. And so you really don't know anything until you're in the season competing, and you're working with the coaches, the catchers, everybody, and you're figuring out where you're right and where you're wrong, and who's right, who's wrong. So you really won't know till June, even and that's where kind of how this goes. Even for myself, I mean, you don't know where you're kind of at. You don't get into midseason form until about June. So that's really about the time when you really evaluate everybody.
Last hard-hitting question I have for you. Again, I always appreciate your time, Max. When you were on that trip with Ernie and the rest of the guys, Hoff, Bieber, you guys had that night out, and Ernie was explaining what his costume was. We were trying to figure out what or who you were. Do you remember? I was trying to figure out if you were Bob Ross.
I don't know if I need to go in. We had a few too many drinks to kind of to really know what was going on in that moment.
Can you imagine?
What happened at the party stayed at the party.
A tipsy Max Scherzer. Oh, that was so many little tidbits from that interview, but I'll address something in the chat. If you were listening, there was a gentleman sitting behind us in the stands. There's actually quite a few people standing around us, and they just started to gather when they saw Max Scherzer sit beside me. And there was also AAA and a AA game that was happening around the ballpark, and so many players just came and they were just watching Max, and that's why I asked the question. But the funny part about that gentleman sitting behind me is that he had about 4 friends who brought out their flip phones and they were filming the entire interview. Like
flip phones.
Flip phones. I was like, I don't know if there's enough storage on that phone. Like,
Why do they have
Shout out to Nokia.
Yeah,
maybe the Samsung has a flip phone.
Oh yeah.
They were quite mature.
Motorola
in age.
Razrs.
Yeah.
Yeah, is the Razr making a comeback? I think it's making a comeback.
I think so. I had one back in the day, and let me tell you,
that
was it was a big deal.
I did not have one. I was jealous of people that had one, though.
You just jealous? Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I didn't have one either.
Something I was jealous of is the Game 7 home run hit by Will Smith. Sorry to bring it up to everyone.
Can we not?
No,
why are you
just because we are seeing a lot of clever advertisements.
Warning.
Yeah, trigger warning by other teams in Major League Baseball promoting their upcoming giveaways. Will Smith, they put out that they are giving away a Game 7 home run bobblehead. And this was the advertisement that the Dodgers put out. It's funny. Take it with a grain of salt, Jays fans. Here's what happened.
I gotta go. Do me a favor and step to the side.
The Mountie.
Something wrong? You want to tell me what this is a boot?
A boot?
It's just a bobblehead. Just a bobblehead, eh? Sorry, sir, but you've been banned from entering Canada. See what all the fuss is about with this Will Smith Game 7 bobblehead presented by Bank of America.
That's great.
It's pretty
that's
clever.
Great.
That's very good. Very good. I mean, I hate it. People on the East Coast are the ones that Americans make fun of that say a boot and car and garage. Yeah. So like it's unfortunately all of Canada is painted with that accent, but we'll take it. It's fun.
Clayton in the chat, do you say a boot and car? We need to know because I know you're an East Coaster.
I definitely don't say
a
boot.
I say a.
You do?
A lot.
Well, you do say garage.
And sorry.
We have learned you do say garage.
And dinner versus supper.
Do you say roof or roof?
Roof.
Okay, good.
I'm going to stop because I'm going to go through all the words that I say wrong, apparently, that people in Saskatchewan say differently. But
I'm sure in Alberta, a lot of people say roof.
Roof.
They say hay instead of a. And, and I think in Saskatchewan, they say supper, not dinner.
Yeah, I say supper.
Yeah,
I say supper.
Very formal
I
of
also
you.
say bunny hug instead of hoodie. It's something I have to constantly correct. It's a Saskatchewan only thing, which we don't need to get into now. Yeah, we can discuss this another time.
Okay.
Because we need to discuss the Leafs being in Boston tonight. Many calling this the Brandon Carlo game because if we go back to the trade that sent Fraser Minton there and a first for Carlo that everyone wants the Leafs to have at the end of the season because that's the only redeemable moment. A lot of chatter about that trade, and it's been a lot of conversations for probably the last couple of months. Here's what Carlo had to say about the conversation surrounding him coming to Toronto and if it's impacted him at all.
A little bit, but same sort of thing with things that are outside of my control. Try not to pay attention to it too much, but just try to bring my best each and every day, and that's all I can control.
That's all he can control, and I can control us keeping this narrative going by asking you guys. When you go into this game, of course, that is a huge storyline surrounding the Leafs in Boston. Was this one of the biggest missteps of the season?
Well, do you know who the number 1 center is for the Boston Bruins right now?
Do you know who you are? I am. I screwed it up. Who is it?
You did. Yeah, that's Fraser Minton saying, "Who do you think you are?" I am. Okay, it's not Elias Lindholm. It is Fraser Minton that is the number 1 center. And okay, maybe his production has dropped off since the Olympics, but he's been a godsend for this Bruins team that is having a bounce back year. And that is a draft pick of the Maple Leafs that they sent in the Carlo trade. And it would be nice if that was the only thing they sent in the Carlo trade. But no, on top of that, there is a top 5 protected first round pick that is going to the Bruins this year. And the Leafs currently aren't going to select in the top 5. So it will be headed to Boston unless they win the lottery. That is what makes this deal difficult for Leaf fans to get over. on top of that, you remember the Tuukka Rask for Andrew Raycroft trade, the Phil Kessel trade, which sent Tyler Seguin and Dougie Hamilton to the Boston Bruins. The Bruins having won 4 consecutive playoff series against the Maple Leafs. Yes, on the Wikipedia page, it should say that the Bruins are co-owners alongside Rogers for the Maple Leafs. That's the way that it has felt. It is gross that this is what is happening, and this is how this trade has transpired. And it's, Brandon Carlo, I wouldn't say he's been terrible. He hasn't been as good as I and many Leaf fans would have hoped he'd be. There was a hope that he'd bring more of a physicality that he hasn't brought. You think about the Austin Matthews hit. He was one of those guys on the ice. Stolarz had to call him out earlier this year for not defending him when he was getting bumped into. There's been moments where you wanted more from Brandon Carlo. But if you look at his numbers, he's even at 5-on-5. He hasn't been terrible. But the narrative is terrible because Brad Treliving paid too much to acquire this player at last year's deadline. The Bruins held him over the coals, and Brad Treliving bent the knee to the Boston Bruins, and they're paying for it. And they're going to pay for it for years because they don't just have this first-round pick, but also the pick that went to the Philadelphia Flyers. These are the 2 defining trades of Brad Treliving's career. Yes, Carlo is taking a lot of the heat for it, but it's going to be Brad Treliving who has to fall on the sword for this because this is something that's going to haunt the Leafs for years given these 2 first-round picks they've given up.
You make compelling points, Dan, and there's not really that much to watch this game for, not much to watch in this game tonight. This is the showcase era. So I'm just going to, I'm flying the flag for Easton Cowan, who recorded his first multi-point game against Ottawa. I just want to see how the young fellow responds to Craig Berube deriding him the other day about him admitting that the team was a little bit shook after the first period. And, him playing on a line with John Tavares, they had beautiful give and go in that game against Ottawa. And, just watching for the small battles and just seeing where some of the younger players are improving. And, I am an observer like the rest of Leafs Nation, just casually waiting for the next 10 games to play out and just see what happens on April 16th or 17th or 18th.
Well, we need to get Craigie B to give those guys more minutes. He's done it with Cowan at times, but then he called out Cowan after the last game.
He might be top line, get some top line minutes tonight.
But even Jacob Quillen. Let's see more of Quillen. He's one of the younger guys that we'd like to get a better look at and a better feel. I don't need to see more minutes of Calle Yarncroke. The only reason I need to see more minutes of Calle Yarncroke is to ensure more losses. That would be the only reason to have more Calle Yarncroke in the lineup. Even
catching strays this morning, Calle Yarncroke.
I want you to get see more minutes of Morgan
This guy's
Riley.
having a coffee, just what the hell? Hit me in the face.
Yeah, well, Morgan Riley is helping the tank. He's one of the tank commanders right now for the Maple Leafs, given how things have gone. But even something like Matthew Nyes getting he played 24 minutes the other night. It's the guy is admitting to everybody that his knee is still bothering him, but he doesn't want to shut it down. He wants to be a good teammate and keep going out there and fighting with his teammates. That's very admirable of Matthew Nyes to do, but does the coach have to go and ride him into the ground for 24 minutes a night? The guy had 0 shots. He was a -2. He didn't do much in those 24 minutes. He's clearly not at 100%. So I'm with you, Cab. This needs to be a showcase. This needs to be, let's see more of Easton Cowan. Let's see more of these few young guys that are in the lineup right now, but doesn't seem like Craig Berube is on that same train.
Question about being on the same train. When it comes to presidents of the organization within MLSE, we've seen them get rid of the Leafs, TFC, and Raptors.
Yeah.
Do the Argos have one? I don't know. Let's be honest. I'm looking. Yes, they don't. They did.
Wasn't it Michael Clemens for a long time? Or is he still the president?
Manning.
I'm not sure.
So, yeah, okay. So we have a Argos expert, our producer Nick is just yes, no, yes. So do you think it was a mistake to get rid of the president position? I'm not talking about Shanahan, but getting rid of that position and not replacing him.
I think the proof is in the pudding that
I hate pudding.
the Leafs should have a president of hockey operations. They let go of Brendan Shanahan, and maybe it was time for Shannon to go. I think a lot of people felt that it was time to move into a different era, but that position was never replaced. And I can see how not every franchise across the National Hockey League needs a president of hockey ops. I think about my time in Vancouver, and Jim Rutherford was there with Patrick Allvin, and Patrick Allvin was general manager and Jim Rutherford was president. And at times it felt like Patrick Allvin was just an assistant to Jim Rutherford who was handling the trades and everything else, right? So it can get messy, but it worked for the Leafs with Brendan Shanahan and Lou Lamoriello and then Kyle Dubas. You can't say that it didn't work. This is a massive entity that you are taking over, and it's unfair, really, to ask Keith Pelly to have his hands on all of these major franchises that Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment owns and be able to handle them all with grace and class and have it run the way that it needs to run in order for those teams to have success. And it's felt most right now with the Maple Leafs, and I do feel like that should be part of the offseason process to put a president in place. I know Chris Pronger's been a hot name, but ultimately that feels like an area where the Leafs can help themselves by beefing up the front office.
I agree. And we'll see what happens with Bobby Marks. Bobby Webster, not Bobby Marks. We'll be speaking to Bobby Marks in a few minutes. Bobby Webster in Toronto, I think he's just on a 1-year deal. Mark Shapiro's seat he's fine. I think he had a 5-year extension back in December or early January. So that president's seat remains with the Toronto clubs under Rogers' control, which is interesting.
It's the most stable, really, of the teams right now, right? So
based on his tenure, yes. I think Masai and Brandon Shanahan were Brandon Shanahan I think was 9 years and Masai was 12 years, I believe, is the. Well, first general manager and then president. Yeah, he's run for a while. I agree with you. It's a curious decision as far as not having, a sports-specific executive to look at the team and to build a team from a 30,000-foot view versus an executive who's in charge of generating, from my understanding, revenue for the three major clubs: the Toronto Blue Jays, Toronto Maple Leafs, and the Toronto Raptors.
You brought up Bobby Marks, who will be on in a couple minutes. He is ESPN's NBA front office insider. If you follow basketball or have even heard the word basketball, you know who Bobby is. I can't wait to hear what his take is on everything happening in the NBA. But let's talk about the Raptors yesterday playing Utah Jazz, where before the game we found out last minute that Brandon Ingram would not be playing, dealing with a little bit of injury in his heel. IQ was out. I've never been able to say
fasciitis.
Thank you. Yeah, no,
I just can't say plantar fasciitis?
No, it's not a Saskatchewan thing.
Oh.
But I will just say he was dealing with a right foot problem. And then
he's got a foot.
Yeah, he's got a foot and it has a problem. And then Pirtle also still dealing with lower back injury. So you're like, oh, wow. Yeah. They're out a number of players. But CMB back for the first time in 11 games. Then Markelle Fultz, amazing story, which I know we spoke here a couple weeks ago when he signed a deal with the 905. He was a first former number 1 pick for the Philadelphia 76ers back in 2017, trying to make his way back in the league after dealing with a number of injuries. When he came to the 905, he was humbled, like first game there, first practice. He was coaching up his other teammates, encouraging them. He didn't even know most of their names at that point. And you see that kind of drive. Let me tell you, some of the players that have come through the 905 that have NBA experience have not had the same attitude as him. So he played the morning with the 905 in Utah, then officially signed a 10-day deal with the Raptors, and I'm so excited for the storyline surrounding the Raps. Dan, I think you're also pretty pumped.
It's I'm definitely that guy that's all in for the post type player that's going to come in and find his way. And everything I've read and checked into with Markelle Fultz is that he is taking this the right way, as you mentioned, Lindsay. And last night he ends up doing the double dip with 905 in Salt Lake and then playing for the Raptors against Utah. He has 5 assists, was 1 of 5 from the field. Nothing flashy, but even Darko said it after the game. There's moments there where you can see the vision and you can see a player in there. Is it going to mean anything down the stretch? Does he have a chance to be a part of the Raptors playoff rotation? I mean, let's just see him get something more than the 10-day contract first. But I think he's, this looks like a player that has, really gone through it. A guy with a ton of hype, obviously, as a first overall pick. Ton of injuries that he's gone through, has taken the time to get his body right, and is trying to position himself to just have an NBA career at this point. And I think we can all appreciate that.
It's a great story. One that's even greater and has more meaningful impact is Jacoby Walter. Like 4 straight games in double digits.
Hello.
Yes. Yeah. Let's give the young fella a round of applause. Bro was 6 for 8 from downtown last night. Almost perfect. He had a team high or a season high 21 points. Look, they played the Utah Jazz. This was a get right game. So Brandon Ingram not playing, Jakob Poeltl not playing, that's fine. The Toronto Raptors did not need them because they had 4 starters with 20 or more points, including Jacoby Walters. RJ Barrett had 27 points in 25 minutes. Sandro Mamukelashvili had 29 points. An efficient 9 for 14 from the field. Scotty Barnes had a double-double, 20 points, 10 assists, 20 points. Yeah, 10 assists. How many rebounds? I didn't write that down, but he was 8 for 10. It was the get-right game that they needed. Their next opponent, the LA Clippers, also played in a get-right game in their last matchup, which was against the Milwaukee Bucks, beat them by 30. No Giannis. The Raptors will play in Inglewood on tomorrow. So 2 teams that are vying for playoff or in playoff contention, trying to secure a seed between 1 and 6 so they avoid the play-in. It should be a great matchup. And Kawhi Leonard has returned to form. He's almost peak Kawhi. He had a 45-point game recently. I think he had a 50-piece. It's gonna be an awesome game. And hopefully Brandon Ingram's foot troubles, his plantar fasciitis, isn't bugging him too much where he plays tomorrow. And Jakob Poeltl, who knows? We'll need his presence in the interior. But Colin Murray-Boyles returning to the lineup is so promising. The young fella, 9 points, 4 rebounds, 5 blocks. Young fella seems like he's back. And what are you, 12, 15 minutes or 20 minutes? So great to see the young fella back. And we'll need his defensive intensity and his production against the Clippers on Wednesday.
Yeah, one number to bring up before we bring in our awesome guest is that yesterday the Raptors set a single-game franchise record with 49 assists. The previous high was 44 set back in 2023, and dishing out 15 of them for a career high was Jamal Shed. We are Shed heads on the show. We also are huge fans of Bobby Marks, ESPN's NBA front office insider. Good morning.
What's up, Bobby?
Good morning.
Yeah.
Good morning. How are we doing?
We are
Wonderful.
great. We are so happy to have you on here today. First question I'm just going to ask you, is there any conversation or anybody talking about the Raptors? Because we love them in Canada, but sometimes I know they don't get a lot of talk.
Yeah, I mean, I thought even before the season started, I thought people probably should buy stock in what Toronto could potentially do this year just based on the Brandon Ingram trade last February that probably didn't get enough attention that it should have. And it was really a move that was made for this season, not last year when you go out and get Ingram, who was hurt at the time in New Orleans. And then you kind of, you get healthy. I think that was the biggest thing as far as you didn't really have a rotating door of rosters and starting lineups to worry about here. And you've been relatively consistent. Certainly the Jakob injury hurt you a little bit, but now he's back here. But I think you have to be happy as far as what you've seen in Toronto so far. They will likely should be a top 6 team when we get started in the playoffs in a month from now, and it's certainly something to build off of.
Yeah, coming off of last year and where this team had been for the last couple, it's been nice to see the turnaround. And the expectations have kind of changed as to okay, what does this team look like? And they've struggled against some of the upper echelon teams in the league here, Bobby. Can you see them making noise in the playoffs? Is that matchup dependent, or is this really just step one of the rebuild in the Raptors?
Yeah, I mean, I think it will depend on the matchup, and I think whoever they'll face. I mean, you could be staring at, I guess, anywhere from Boston, New York, potentially Cleveland. I would say those are probably the three teams there as far as in a round matchup. Round one matchup, I think it's going to be certainly difficult here. I think it's when you have, and I know a lot of these guys have been in the league before, but I do think it's a newer roster just because they have not been in a position together as a team to be in the playoffs together. I think you learn a lot about teams as far as going through a 7-game series, dealing with adversity. A lot of that, as far as what you do in the offseason, is dependent on what just happened. I think a good example is what we saw last year with Houston. They go out and lose in 7 games to Golden State, and then they go out and relatively young roster, they go out and make a Kevin Durant trade. So I think for Bobby Webster, their general manager, it's okay. Let's see who we are. We didn't make a drastic move at the deadline. Who we face in the first round, win or lose, or maybe we get to a second round, and then address maybe some of our needs when we get into June and July.
Yeah, and you mentioned the Brandon Ingram trade. It's maybe one last stroke of brilliance from Masai Ujiri before he moved on from the Raptors. But kind of looking back at this year's deadline, like it felt like a lot of teams started to do that or follow what Masai Ujiri did with that Brandon Ingram trade and make a deal at the trade deadline to set themselves up for the following season.
Yeah, we call it pre-free agency, right? And I think Toronto was one of the first teams that did it. And what we've seen is that, there's 3 ways that you can go out and build a roster. Certainly the draft, and where Toronto is, they've added some nice pieces. Certainly Scotty in the draft a few years ago, and Colin I think has had really some nice moments this year. Some of your second round picks, certainly you have Grady and Jacoby also, and you've got all 7 of your first round picks, and then the draft. The free agency, which is not as, I guess, popular anymore as far as going out and preserving cap space, and then the trade market. And what Toronto was able to do, as I mentioned, with Brandon, they wouldn't have been able to afford him in free agency this past summer, but they go out and trade for him, and then there was we live in a copycat league, and then you saw this year with Washington, they go out and get Trey Young and Anthony Davis. Young was could be a free agent this offseason. Utah with Jaren Jackson Jr., Indiana with Ivica Zubac. So teams that are kind of making these moves not for the last 2 months of the season, but more for next year.
Bobby, I just want to salute. First of all, good morning. Also, salute to Masai Ujiri pulling off the Kawhi Leonard trade as far as like picking up a distressed asset and had a generational run. And Brandon Ingram, we love him here in Toronto. Sixers President Daryl Morey, a disciple of Michael Lewis's book Moneyball, ushered in the popularization of the three-pointer as in the early teens. It was largely reliant on the shot being a competitive advantage. I want you to listen. You may have already discussed this clip, but for our audience, I'd like you to listen to this clip from Daryl Morey speaking with The Ringer 2 weeks ago.
I was telling the league office they need to fix the three-point problem that was created by all the analysis from the conference, and they were arguing against me. And so it was sort of like a full circle moment where I do think the game is unbalanced. For sure, 3 is too much for that shot, and there needs to be something to do to help fix the game and address it.
So interestingly, the gentleman who was largely responsible for popularizing the shot is now saying, hey, we have a problem. Maybe because Philly sucks at three-point shots. But 2 questions for you. Do you believe, Bobby, that there is a problem with the three-pointer? And if so, what is a solution to fix the over-reliance on that shot?
I think the three-point shot is probably on the bottom of the list to do items for the NBA league office.
Fair enough.
There's a lot
Fair
more.
enough, bro.
I think there's more pressing needs. I think there's probably the tanking. I think expansion. I think some of the maybe some of the other rules that will be addressed here. I heard, it's funny. I heard that comment a week ago. I also heard Daryl talk. I don't know why I saw it on somewhere last night that they make a lot of their decisions by using AI, which I thought was pretty fascinating. I kind of the world we live in, and also here. I think it's I think we started to see more of a trend of players living through the mid range. Of course, I think the 3-pointer is a resource for you to get back in games. Certainly, we see it in the playoffs a lot. Where we always say no lead is too big. A 13-point league could be down to 3 if you hit 3 or 4 threes and stuff. But I'm not probably there as far as making a change to the 3-point line. I think a time ago we maybe heard that maybe there's a 4-point shot and it's closer to, and I think that's now we kind of getting into a little bit gimmicky here. I don't know how much more further they can move the 3-point line out, because it's with these guys with their size 14, 15 shoes on the corner threes, they're barely getting their toes in the line already here. So I'm probably not in that faction as far as making a change as far as what we've seen with the 3-pointer.
Fair enough. You mentioned AI, and I'd like to know which 2026 NBA team has a roster that looks most like a Bobby Marks spreadsheet come to life.
Oh my God, that's a good question. It's funny. I was I don't know about spreadsheet. I think the Celtics are a really good case study as far as what they've done the last year. We a year ago we were talking about them as being the most expensive team in NBA history, and with all the payroll, and I think they were projected to spend like $510 million. And then the Tatum injury happens in the New York series, and then they make a lot of these trades, and they basically save a ton of money, and now they're spending like $185 million, and people are like, oh, how do they do it? And I think it's a lesson in drafting well. It's not drafting through the lottery, but it's drafting in the back end, guys that are making $2-3 million, guys that you find on two-way contracts that you develop here. When your injured players get hurt, you have kind of a backbone as far as really good players here. So if I'm studying spreadsheets and as far as how rosters are built, I think Boston is probably the case study as far as how to do it. A year ago, I said Indiana was a really good example because you had Halliburton and Siakam, and then everyone else making less than $20 million, and that team goes to an NBA Finals. And I think they'll be in pretty good shape next year when Tyrese gets back, and if they get a pretty high lottery pick here.
That's a great pick by you, the Indiana Pacers. We love Spicy P. Pascal Siakam grew up with Toronto Raptors. So we have a lot of love for him. Last question for you. It was I read that, and I don't know if this is actually true, so please correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah.
You once made $18,000 a year or for a year in an NBA front office. In today, so correct me if I'm wrong. Is that true?
It is true. It's funny. I had a discussion. I have two teenagers at home. One's in college and one's in junior high school. And my older one put that number, what it would be in this day and age, and I think it came out to like 40,000 if it would be, which is probably not enough. But yeah, when I started with the Nets, I was making $18,000. Ironically, 2 years later, it's the infamous. It's kind of like urban. That urban myth and stuff like that. We sold a draft pick for $50,000, and the story goes that I don't know if I can tell you if it's true or not, but we wound up buying a fax machine and paved our parking lot with the money that we got from the trade. So we traded a draft pick that actually doubled what my salary was when I first started with the Nets here.
Yeah, I was gonna say what real quick, like it in today's NBA, it barely covers the fine for an untucked jersey, as LeBron was admonishing Jabari Smith Jr. the other day I don't know if you saw that, but he had his untucked. Anyway, yeah, it barely covers the fine.
These guys, these guys are on two-way contracts who get like suspended or they get fined, and you're making, for NBA standards, not much, and you're losing probably losing most of your game pay in one incident.
Yeah, you got to tread lightly there.
A lot of money. Fun fact in the G League, a lot of players do not tuck their jerseys in. Bobby, I'm the sideline reporter for Raptors 905 G League team.
Yeah,
and
sure.
They obviously have an expansion team in Mexico, a G League team there. And you wrote extensively about the expansion and a potential like Seattle and Las Vegas. Do you think there actually potentially could be a team in Mexico at one point for the NBA? Like, to me, this is just crazy to think like even 5 years ago.
Yeah. I do. I think, listen, we're going to learn a lot tomorrow. The Board of Governors meeting in New York is tomorrow. I think the commissioner, of course, we wrote about it last Monday when the expansion news came out, and it looks like they're going to kind of really get a better idea here. I think it's a matter of If we go to expansion teams, what teams are they? Of course, Seattle and Las Vegas are the teams that have been talked about at length. Mexico City, I think, is pretty fascinating as far as, because now you take a team. Certainly, we have Toronto. You take a team out of the United States and you put them there. I teach a class, and about a month ago, we did an expansion draft project, and we had 10 teams, and one of them was Mexico City, and it really was a fascinating exercise. Not really what the teams could look like, but kind of like taking in the culture of that city and with their colors and their logo and all those different things. So I do think if we get the green light, which will probably be tomorrow on expansion, I think Mexico City certainly should be considered here. But I think Seattle is probably the front runner, of course, a team that once had, which is now Oklahoma City, and Vegas is somewhere that we've been going forever, the last, I guess, 10, 15 years with Summer League. And but the one thing with Vegas, of course, concerns me is now we have the A's that are going to be there with baseball. We already have football. You have certainly hockey. We got the W there. We've got another team as far as can it be sustainable for a city that's really a tourist city, that you have a lot of kind of it's more of like kind of like a weekend city as far as people coming to visit.
Yeah, last one from me, Bobby, on the expansion note, like adding 2 teams. You mentioned tanking being a big problem earlier. Like, does adding 2 teams help or worsen the NBA's tanking issue?
That's a great question. I think, I said it last week, Brooklyn was down 60-24 to Oklahoma City. And I think they had 2 games where they were down, I don't even know, 59 points combined at the half. And then you look at last night's, right? Like, look at the box scores as far as some of these teams here that have lost by 40 points here. I think you have to figure out the tanking situation first, which is basically, and I always say, like, tanking is not like something where like a coach and players go out and lose on purposely. I think it's what tanking is that your front office or your ownership, you basically are giving less resources for players who are out there playing here as far as the manpower out there. So I do think that needs to get addressed first, and I think it will. I'm not as concerned as far as will the rosters get watered down here. I think we've done a really good job of late, and I think Canada Basketball has done a really good job as really developing a young pipeline of young players. You're going to see it this year with a lot of these freshmen that are going to be in this draft. A lot of them have come through Team USA as far as either U16 or U18. So I do think there's a stronger group of players that are coming up that are teenagers right now that we'll probably see in the league a few years from now.
Bobby, we appreciate your time, but I'm so appreciative that you make more than $18,000 now. We salute you.
I know.
I'm sure his family is too.
This day and age.
We appreciate your time. Thank you. Have
Thanks,
a great
Bobby.
day. And
Thanks,
make sure
Bobby.
to go check out his articles on ESPN, especially when it involves the expansion, how this could impact the league, including your Toronto Raptors. But when it comes to the Toronto Raptors, are they the next big thing? I'm not sure. It's now time for the next big thing, brought to you by Coca-Cola. The excitement of the FIFA World Cup 26 is bubbling up in every fan and every can of Coke. It's coming, and nothing can contain the joy and passion. Okay, they get it. So purchase a can of Coca-Cola and you can score FIFA World Cup 26 VIP experiences. Go to the URL in the description. No purchase necessary for Canadian residents only. You must be 13 or older and with a web device.
Ends April 20th. Math skill test required.
Rules at cokeurl.com/soccerrulesca.
Go check out the rules after our podcast, and good luck to you all. But Dan, what do you think is the next big thing?
The next big thing is, well, I guess he's already arrived, but Matthew Schaefer for me is the next big thing in the National Hockey League. He's in one of the primary cities. He's rejuvenated a New York Islanders fan base like you wouldn't believe, and is having maybe the best 18-year-old season we have ever seen from a defenseman in the National Hockey League. Like, we're talking Phil Housley, Bobby Orr type stuff from Matthew Schaefer. In today's day and age, it's freakish. Like, truly, truly freakish. It's been unbelievable to see. And the fact that he's also putting the Islanders back into a playoff spot. They're currently sitting there right now. We'll see if they end up locking it down. But he has been the main driver of this for the Islanders, and you just don't see an 18-year-old do that. We're not just looking at somebody who's projecting to be one of the best defensemen in the league today. We're seeing somebody who is going to be projected as maybe one of the best of all time if he continues this up, considering he is just 18 years old.
Cabbie, I think you might be muted because you're so excited to talk about the next big thing.
My bad, fella. My bad, squad. Geez, Louise. I think you're right, Dan. 20 goals as a rookie defenseman, 50 points. Like, his numbers jump off the page. And Patrick Waugh is using him as a true top defenseman, playing 200 feet of hockey. Hamilton's own is just he's just such a great, skilled player. John Michael Lyles was on with us, I believe, last week, and put him in the same conversation as Lane Hudson, Cale Makar, as one of these highly skilled quarterbacks on their power play, just leading their team in special teams. And this kid is 18 years old. It's one quote from Patrick Waugh, which I thought was quite great. He said, he's gapping so well. He's got a great stick. We knew he had the offensive skills, but the way he's been defending, it's pretty impressive. Now, that's impressive praise from a coach who's not known to be warm and cuddly. So, Matthew Schaefer, I believe he's arrived, just as you said, Dan, and the future is very bright for this young fella.
I love this. It's exciting. He could be the next big thing.
He absolutely could be.
I think he very much will be the next big thing. But I'm excited for you guys' Proline pick, which is the next big thing for me on this show. It's time for your Proline pick of the day. The new Proline app is here. Betting online with Proline Plus and betting in store are both easier than ever with the new Proline app. More sports, more leagues, and more markets than ever. And it ain't the old Proline. The new app makes betting on baseball easier than ever. Dan, what do you have today? Because you definitely did not hit yesterday.
Well, yesterday was it was a DNP for BI, so we didn't know that he was not going to play. But we go back to the drawing board, and we go back to Narrative Street, where we find Fraser Minton leading the Boston Bruins against the Maple Leafs tonight. Is it a must-win for the Bruins? It's pretty close. I mean, the Eastern Conference playoff race is pretty crazy right now. So Fraser Minton, anytime goal against the team that maybe gave up on him a little too early.
Okay. Nicely done, sir. The Edmonton Oilers on a mini 2-game road swing through Utah and Las Vegas. And the Oilers were badly outplayed by Tampa Bay and Florida recently, resulting in back-to-back losses. So here is an opportunity for them to get better. Zach Hyman is sitting on 29 goals. Leon Draisaitl is not in the lineup because of an injury. So this is a great opportunity for Zach Hyman to score an anytime goal in Salt Lake City tonight for the Edmonton Oilers. And these picks are for entertainment purposes only, folks.
Oh, I thought you weren't going to say to like, Cabbie, do not leave out for entertainment purposes only. I look forward to that, as I know Will and Justin in the chat do as well. And for entertainment purposes, I'm shocked by something that happened in the basketball world yesterday. If you know anything about Joe Mazzulla, the head coach of the Boston Celtics, he's a tough interview. He's a tough coach, very unique individual. That's all I need to say about him if you don't know anything about him. So yesterday he was at WWE Monday Night Raw with one of his players, Derek White, and this is what happened. Well, basically, I'll let you know. Whoa, that's Derek White. Oh, yeah. And then there's a smile.
Oh no!
And then he puts him in a headlock, or almost like he just. Oh, he starts wrestling with Derek White. If you guys can't see the video.
Who? What? Who? What? Where? Who is this man?
I mean, I don't know how many HR violations that counts as, but it's a few.
Yeah, the Celtics have had a lot in their history with coaches. Whoa. Yeah.
Doesn't he trains in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, I believe. Joe Mazzulla does.
Yes.
And it's rare to see him act like a human, smiling, having a great time or whatever, play fighting with his player there. And also that footage looks like it was shot on a flip phone. We were talking about flip phones in the Max Scherzer interview earlier in the show. Like, it's the greatest. Was that footage shot from like a space shuttle? Like it was like 240p. Or 144p, like the early YouTube clips resolution there.
It was filmed on a Motorola Razr.
Yeah, I think the camera just didn't know what to do because they're like, Missoula is smiling and being a human. What do? I am a robot. I need to
breaking
stop.
up the signal. Like, ooh.
Yeah. Yeah, I can't take that seriously. I don't know how much you got paid to act like a real human because that's just not the Joe we've seen over the last, several years. But tomorrow we're looking forward to seeing you join us for Off the Roster. We're going to talk more Blue Jays. Is tomorrow Wednesday?
It is Wednesday.
Tomorrow's
I
Wednesday.
need to tell you where I will be at Wednesday. I was like, I don't know what is happening tomorrow. I just sounded like Kramer if you watch Seinfeld when he's the movie phone guy. I'm like, tell me what movie you would like to see. I will be at the Rogers Center where they are unveiling their new food items this year. Plus there's a lot of renovations and stuff like that. So I'll be live from the Rogers Center as we continue our Blue Jays talk. We also will break down what happened in the Leafs game and talk more basketball. So make sure to join us tomorrow for Off the Roster.
Hope you enjoyed this video. If you want more Off the Roster content, make sure to like and hype this video and subscribe to the Nation Network YouTube channel.